and provide those comments. We will be here in an open format style after the formal presentation period where we can have one-on-one conversations or small group conversations and answer your concerns or talk through some things. I'll remind you that we are in what is called the public commenting period. And what does that mean? Once these watershed plan EAs are completed into the draft format, then the public has a period in which to review the plans and then comment on the plans. And so that period is open until September 30th. And I would encourage you to take advantage of this period of time to comment, share it with your friends and neighbors and business owners that are interested. And, this is your plan for your community. Okay, with that, I want to first recognize we have mayors in the house. I see Mayor Lisa Gilbert from the city of Elaine. Thank you for being here. I see Chief of Staff Valley here representing Mayor Franklin's office. Did I miss any mayors? Okay. Yes, sir. Thank you. Madison, Arkansas. I'd like to recognize we have city council members here. Would our city council members please stand or wave your hand? Thank you for being here. And the city council for Helena-West Helena. Thank you. Do we have any quorum court members that are here? Okay. Anyone else that I have missed? Any representatives from NRCS? Arkansas Black Mayors Association. Mr. Black. Thank you. And I want to recognize the Phillips County Conservation District. We have several members here from the district. Thank you for being here as well. Next slide, please. This is our agenda. We'll first talk about the project team. I'll give you a little bit of background on what a Plan EA is. We'll talk about the purpose, give you a project overview, cover some of the environmental impacts that were a result of this planning exercise. We'll talk about the costs, and then we will open it up for Q&A. However, what we will most likely do, since this is a joint meeting, instead of taking Q&A immediately after our presentation, we'll turn it over to the Iconic team, and then following their presentation, we can have a large Q&A. Does that work for everyone? Perfect. Let's go. So these projects are sponsored by NRCS. And in conjunction with Arkansas Black Mayors Association, they are acting as the fiduciary agent for these projects. And then our sponsors, the city of Helena, West Helena, and Phillips County. Other sponsors may also join as we complete the planning process. For now, these are the project sponsors. I'd like to make you aware of the project consultants. Working with Key Concrete and Construction are DRMP, Olson FTN, ABT, Strategic Inc., Task One, Simon Engineering, and Flat Earth Archaeology. That's your project team. And as you can see from the makeup of the team, this was a multidisciplinary effort. So you have scientists, engineers, economists, and public outreach specialists engaged in this endeavor. This is the watershed, Long Lake Bayou, Little B Bayou, and you can see the boundaries of the watershed. And I'm gonna take this. Sorry, apologies for that. I like to walk around. What I want to bring to your attention is the multiple communities that are represented in this watershed. So when you're filling out your comment cards or when you're talking about the watershed, a lot of times we're going to ask, well, which watershed do you live in? And we'll help you locate yourself in the watershed. But these are all of the communities that are represented in the Long Lake Bayou Little Bee Bayou watershed. Me walking around isn't working out. Okay. Okay. So next slide, Plan EA. I said I would talk about what that is. Is everybody familiar with what Plan EA is? Okay. So the watershed plan itself has a component called short EA, but it's environmental assessment. And that's part of the compliance piece that's required by NEPA. And so we're not just planning, but we're also considering the environmental impacts for these watershed projects. So I've already mentioned that the watershed plan has been prepared and it's available for comment. And during this meeting, we're going to be talking about the different alternatives that we looked at, because not all of the alternatives made it to the end for in-depth study for a number of reasons. And then we will ask or answer your questions and solicit comments that you might have about the plan. Does anyone have any questions about why we are here and what the purpose is today before I move on? Okay, well, we're here to share the watershed plan with you, to talk about the environmental impacts, to talk about the process that we went through to develop the plan, and to share with you the results of the modeling, the economic analysis, et cetera, but then to get your comments on the plan. That's why we're here today. Okay. So what's the purpose? One of the key and most important aspects of watershed planning is to identify your purpose and need. And the purpose of these plans was flood mitigation. That's why we're doing this. Flood prevention, reduce damage. You know, during the kickoff meeting, we heard countless stories of citizens who experience recurring flood, recurring damage to their property or crops, inability to go to work, inability to come home from work, to reach the doctor, for emergency responders to get to you. We heard stories of people having sewage in their yard. These types of things. The whole purpose of this exercise is to address these types of issues. So protect existing infrastructure and to improve drainage in selected areas. The need, gotta have a need. And the need is to address persistent flooding in the watershed and in flood-prone areas where you're experiencing damages to buildings and infrastructure. That's why we're doing it. That's the purpose and need. Any questions before we move on from this slide? Sorry, I didn't. Could we get a microphone for that question? It's not. Is there a way to turn up the volume?
Okay. Okay, I was asking, you know, the faucet, when water be coming out of our faucet, it has a smell. Do they have anything to do with that?
No, and thank you for bringing that up. Just so that we're clear, this meeting is about flood mitigation. I believe that there are some citizens that might be here who were under the impression that this dealt with drinking water. And this meeting does not deal with drinking water. We are dealing with flooding throughout the city limits, and we're dealing with damage to structures, to damage to infrastructure, homes, roads, et cetera. Thank you for asking that question. Are there any other questions before we move on? The purpose of this slide is to highlight one of the tools that we use in analyzing the water flow and the flooding within the watershed. This is a simulation of water within your watershed, within the city limits. We use an H&H model. Philip Messier will talk a little bit more about that, but I wanted to give you an understanding that this was a project where we incorporated multiple tools for arriving at the proposed solution. And sir, I didn't catch your name, but you had asked earlier, what is this about? Why are we here? And this is a great photo to show you one of the reasons that we're here. Flooding over Highway 318. That's northeast of Lambrook. Next slide. You can see here, again, this is flooding that's northeast of Lambrook. You can see how the water is just standing. And what's interesting is it's just standing still. It's not going anywhere. And so again, this buildup of water, these are the types of issues that this project was designed to address. Next slide. Croplands being flooded. This is along Highway 20 east of Elaine. Mayor Gilbert, you've probably seen this multiple times. And again, flooding of croplands that's causing damage to crops, that's causing damage to the family or families or businesses that are operating this, and you don't want that happening on a recurring basis. Next slide. And now I'm going to turn it over to Philip, and he will take it from here.
Thanks, Kelly. And also a big thanks to Thearty Griffin with NRCS for those photos that were very helpful. So when we go through this, as you know, there's a lot of need in the watershed. And we got a big watershed. This whole watershed is about 187,000 acres. And there's a lot of flooding in a lot of different places. So what we do is we go through there and identify different places where needs have been brought to our attention. And then we wind up looking at those and saying, okay, here's some different combinations of those, looking at different works of improvement in different areas and looking at, we group those together into alternatives and then evaluate those alternatives. We wish we could solve every flooding problem in the entire watershed, but there's just not enough money to go around on that, unfortunately. But what we do is, like I say, from that first bullet there, we get input from the local from the residents. Thank you for those of you who filled out surveys. So the online survey that came out last summer, appreciate that. Also have input from the municipal officials in both Helena-West and Elaine. Appreciate, giving us tours and showing us some of the areas that are where flooding is occurring. And then also got information from the NRCS personnel, Mr. Griffin and Ms. Benjamin, as well as others, and also from some of the county officials with the road department there. So like I say, we're trying to pull a lot of that in. And again, just from those sources of information, in addition to what Kelly showed you with the, like the modeling, it's like, okay, we got a lot to deal with here. So we're trying to, so we wind up putting them in kind of, we grouped them into kind of 10 different areas, kind of arbitrarily defined areas, but and then, like I say, looked at different combinations of those to do the alternatives, and then we run that through the computer model to say, okay, well, if we put a ditch here or a pipe here or something like that, how much does that bring down the water level? And that's an iterative process. We'll try something and then say, well, that didn't bring down the water very much, or maybe it brought it down over here, but now we need some more, more benefits over here. And so, like I say, tried to within the financial constraints, tried to get as much benefit as we could in as many different areas as we could. And that's, like I say, it's not an exact science, for sure. And then, like I say, and when I talk about benefits, we've got economists on the team who are way smarter than me that do stuff that I couldn't begin to do. But anyway, they take these water depths and look at, different things and say, okay, that's going to translate to a certain decrease in damage to structures, as well as an economic dollar benefit to that. But let me tell you that this is not based entirely on dollars and cents. The old NRCS guidance from a number of years ago was based almost entirely on economics, but this is based on economic benefits, dollars and cents, but it's also based on environmental and social impacts as well. So the social impact or the social effect of that factor is important in this too. And the new NRCS guidance allows us to consider that. And then, like I say, we looked at, of course, when I talk about within financial constraints, obviously we're looking at the cost of each of these works of improvement. And if you're like me, my wife and I have been trying to get some work done on our house, and we look at the estimates and like, wow, that's, sticker shock. And so I kind of go through the same thing with some of this with construction stuff. And it's like, okay, wow, that really costs that much, but it does. Things are, the dollar doesn't go as far as what it used to. So, but we had to work within that. And then, like I say, the last bullet there, we do consider any environmental impacts. That wasn't a big issue here, but like I say, social impacts as well. So that's all part of what we consider. Next. Okay, so the next 5 slides will be the 5 maps that correspond to the 11 by 17 handouts that was available out there. If you didn't get one, there should be a few extras. And they also correspond with the 5 boards that we got 4 of them on easels, ran out of easels over there. But these are the areas where, like I say, after we went through the analysis and said, okay, how can we just stay within our budget? How can we get the most benefit in different areas? Because I'll tell you, we came up with of what we thought, here's what we need out there. And then we looked at the costs and it's like, oh, wow, it was 3 times what our budget is. So, like I said, it had to be, it had to be whittled down, unfortunately. So what I'm showing is you hear just a couple of, when I told you the next 5 slides are going to correspond to the next, those 5 pages on your hand. That's the next 5, not this one, but the next 5. Sorry, I got ahead of myself. But these are some of the areas that there'll be a slide later on. You'll see like areas 1, 3, 5, 8, 9, and 10, and these are some of the areas that correspond to that. Within Helena-West Helena, there's the areas that you'll see on those slides later on. Some tables will be will refer to those 3 areas there. When they were numbered 1, 3, and 5 because we had 10 areas, and then 8 and 9 are the parts of Elaine there. So anyway, just to kind of, if you see some stuff later on that it refers back to these areas. Let's go ahead and go on to the next one here. So like I say, when we look at these alternatives, we always start with a no action alternative, and that's just part of general procedures. It's also part of NRCS requirements because they want to see, well, okay, are we providing any benefit over doing nothing? So, no action would obviously mean, okay, just continued flooding and continued damages and impacts from that. And then we went on to several alternatives. Some of those were talked about in previous meetings. So we wound up with the preferred alternative, and it's preferred by the local sponsors. And that is in 6 different areas here. And those first 5 bullets will correspond to the maps that I was talking about just a minute ago on your handout. So in Helena-West Helena, we've got a combination of proposing subsurface pipes in certain places, ditches in other areas, and a few culverts in there. The area just south of the industrial park is just some ditch clean out that the county had recommended that they wanted to do. And the Lambrook area, we've got some areas that Highway 318 photo that Kelly showed you, that, and then some other areas that you'll see there on the maps. And then in the Elaine areas, it's part of the areas within Elaine, both in kind of the northern, southern parts. And I just say that because the hydrology, the water kind of goes out of the town in 2 different places. And then down in the Melwood area, we've got a couple of county roads that have been flooding problematically, proposing some ditches and culverts there. And then the other thing that's not on a map is in Helena Crossing. To get the water out of Helena Crossing was just going to be really, really expensive for a small number of houses. So we wound up just going with a proposal to elevate houses to get people out of the water. We realized that's not ideal. It doesn't get rid of the street flooding. It's not our first choice by any means. It was just the most affordable option there within our budget. So, and I was talking with the person from Helena Crossing here on any of these. Like I said, once we go through here, if you see, okay, well, they didn't cover my area. I think that, you guys really missed something. That's what the public comment forms are for. We really do appreciate comments that we get. And like I say, the more descriptive you can be, the better. And like I say, if if you have questions about something, please ask today. And you can do your comments orally, but we just have to transcribe that. So it's even better if you can do it in writing as well. So like I say, those are the ones we're looking at. So if we can go to the next slide here, we'll go ahead and pull up the maps here. So this, and I won't go into detail here. Like I say, you can look on your handouts or those boards over there to get the detail. And some of these you can't even read the street names. But anyway, it's just kind of just a quick view of like I say, what's on your handout there of the proposed subsurface pipes and ditches and maybe a couple of culverts there for Helena-West Helena. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. Okay. Yeah.
Could you explain what the three things mean?
Oh,
I
sure.
think I know.
Sure.
But
Yeah. And we've got, appreciate it. Thank you. So on these, actually, can we go back to the previous slide? And because that one has, so on this one, the red is it's labeled as pipe on the map, just meaning a subsurface drainage. So in some places there's existing subsurface drainage, some places there's not, but in some of the places it just works better to do a subsurface drain off a curb and gutter design. And if you've got the relief to get it out of there, other places like say that are in yellow, I don't know on the PowerPoint, it doesn't show up quite as well up here, but the yellow were just the ditches, and most of those are just roadside ditches where if there's not one there that we put one in, or in some cases there's one there, but it just needs to be cleaned out and graded, enlarged, that type of thing. So, and then like I say, there are a few culverts. I can't even, I see one up there on, gosh, can't even read the street names, just south of Walker Street, but just a place where we needed water to drain underneath the street there. Does that answer your question? Sort of. Okay. Were you looking for more of a? No, that's fine.
What you say is that on that pipe means when you say subsurface, those are the pipes that are underneath the street. The street has to be dug up, pipes have to be put down, it will be recovered. Correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Widen that or improve it or fix it in some way. And what you guys think is what is the culvert? It's not either of those two things.
Right. The culvert would be a place like where we need to put a culvert, like in that particular instance, where we need a culvert under the street, where the water needs to go under the street, and there's no culvert, probably no culvert there right now, is my guess. Just, yeah, it'll be a pipe under a street, but the what's labeled as pipes would be kind of that traditional, well, I say traditional subsurface drainage system that you see in a lot of the larger cities, where you you have the curbs and you see that drop inlet, and it'll go through the underneath the street, like you say, until eventually it'll daylight into some creek or something. There's a question in the back there.
That don't necessarily understand the terminology. It would be good to have those photos on the side. So as you mentioned that, they can physically see it, because they've probably seen it before, but have no idea what it is.
Good point. Yeah. So and I'll repeat the question there, or the comment, just for anybody that's, in case it's not being picked up on the sound here. The comment was it'd be good to show pictures of those typical types of drainage structures in the future, just to allow people, even though people have seen them, just to be able to correlate that with the terminology. So, okay, let's go ahead and go. Let's see. The next one was, like I say, below the industrial park, just ditches, and that's also like I say, the industrial park's right at the northern part of the screen there, and then there's also a little subdivision right there, County Road 334 over on the western side. So it's designed to benefit both locations there. Next slide. And this is in the Lambrook area. You can see the for those of you in the room, like I say, Lambrook right there, the intersection of 20 and 318. I know I need to talk into the mic here. The intersection of 20 and 318 is right there on the lower part of the screen. And this is the area that Kelly showed you in the photo where water's coming from the northeast and it comes right down to that highway, and it was going over the highway in that particular instance. I believe that photo is June 2021, if I remember correctly on the date there. Anyway, like I say, water piles up there on the upstream side, so we need to have some couple other either larger or cleaned out culverts there. We don't have all the detailed information there. And then, the waters has been rerouted, due south, and we need to improve that drainage there so it doesn't back up, so it has somewhere to go. Next slide. And also on that previous slide, there's some stuff on a county road up in the northeast, but that's on your handouts there. So this is Elaine. So we've got stuff in, like I say, in both parts of Elaine in terms of where the water is going out on the southwest side, and then water is going out on the more of the, I guess you could say, the northwestern side. And that's a combination of open ditches as well as some subsurface drainage in some places where it, like I said, it makes a little more sense. I know one of those pipes there is an existing pipe there, kind of behind some apartments that I think Monty said that was kind of gets clogged up a little bit occasionally. So we're looking at trying to improve that. Okay, Mayor Gilbert said not occasionally, more than occasionally. So okay, appreciate that. Yeah, and then over on the eastern side of the screen there, you see that's Yellowbank Bayou. That was an area that was brought to our attention by the NRCS staff as just some. In fact, one of the area that drone photo you saw earlier was the drone was just south of Highway 20, looking north up into that other area where, like I say, we're proposing a ditch widening there. Also, okay, next slide. And this is farther south, just west of Melwood. Melwood is just off the edge of the map there. That's the county road going due west from there. And so there are a couple of places there where water's overtopping the road. So we're trying to provide some improvements there just to improve public safety and also decrease the amount of damage that's done to those county roads due to flooding. So, okay, next one. Okay, so these are these tables here. You see those areas 1, 3, 5. Those are the areas I was telling you about earlier. Don't really worry about the numbers. It's just that was kind of some internal bookkeeping there. But what you're seeing here is just kind of a compilation of the quantities of improvements that we're trying to propose here. So you can see, like say, if you add them all up, we're 15,000 feet of subsurface drainage pipes, 61,000 feet of earthen ditch, and smaller quantities of some of those others. So it's when you add it all up over a lot of areas, it's quite a bit. And like I said, that's why it's so expensive. And like I said, we've got a big watershed we're covering here. Next slide. And this is just some of the numbers on the costs. Like I say, and we've got all the details in spreadsheets and stuff, but like I say, by area, like I say, it all adds up. A couple 100,000 here, a couple million here, and like I say, before you know it, you're up to the 25 million. And I mentioned 25 million. That's if your construction costs exceed 25 million. All of a sudden your watershed plan has to have congressional approval, and it has to have an environmental impact statement. And with congressional approval, that's okay. We all know Congress may or may not even take it up. I mean, you just, it's kind of a territory you really don't want to go unless you have to. And like I said, also triggers an environmental impact statement, which is you're pulling money out of fixing problems into studying it more needlessly, really. It's just a requirement that's in the federal law. So next one. Oh, I'm sorry. Was a question? Yes, Ms. Hadlock. Oh, okay. Yeah, we'll go back to yeah, okay, we're up there. So we didn't have the benefits specifically listed on there. Those are the, as I understand it, and correct me if I'm wrong, Kelly, those are just the monetary benefits, what you can put into dollars and cents. And so that's where those benefits are looking at, okay, with and without the proposed improvements, how much are we reducing water levels? How much are we reducing damage to structures? That type of thing. And you see pending because we were in, this is all on a compressed time frame, and that's an understatement, but we're still pulling together a few numbers there on like, damage to county roads and how much that will get reduced out in the county, and as well as we made some last minute changes and kind of fine tuned some stuff in the lane. That's why those numbers are pending there. But it's basically, it's just a ratio of the annual benefits to the annual costs. And I want to say annual costs, they take those numbers in the millions and it's like over a 50-year life, and they figure in maintenance and operation and things like that. Correct. Yeah. Go ahead.
That's correct. So what you're seeing here is only dealing with the monetary aspect of the project. As Philip mentioned earlier, this project takes into account social benefits, environmental benefits. We're looking at this within a framework. And so any number that you see above 1, to make it simplistic, that's really good, okay, in terms of this benefit cost ratio. But again, let's looking at this one that's 0.17. There are other reasons to pursue that work of improvement. And so when I was talking about inability to get to work or to the doctor because roads are impassable, or constantly having to rebuild your area, or open ditches that are maybe harboring mosquitoes, things of that nature, those are the types of things that are taken into account to holistically arrive at the best solution that we possibly can with a budget that we have to be effective. That's not represented just on this chart. Yes.
Thank you, Kelly. Go ahead, next slide. Yeah, so you've got some examples here of just kind of, like I say, before and after improvements. And these are, like I say, looking at flooding depths and like I say, I won't, just for the interest of time, I won't go through all the details, but like I say, if you look at particular cases, you can see where we actually proposed improvements. You can see some reductions there. Like I say, it's not like we're coming down 10 feet, because we weren't starting out with 10 feet of water, but we are making significant reductions there, and that's incorporated into those economic benefit calculations. Next. And this is the same thing in the Elaine area. And again, like I say, where the improvements were focused, particularly where you can see the greatest benefit is really kind of within the city of Elaine. You can see some, both the northern and southern parts, just like I say, where some of those darker colors are there. Like I say, that was before, and then after is with the lighter colors where it's a little shallower. So again, like I say, just an example of some of the improvements there that we're trying to get. Next. Okay. So we've got the other part of what Kelly had mentioned is that we are required to look at social and environmental impacts and including the environmental impacts. And so if you think about that, NEPA is set up to where National Environmental Policy Act is set up to where, anytime the federal government is doing something, you have to consider environmental impacts and other things. Like say, if they were going to build a big highway right through here, they would have to say, okay, what kind of social impacts here, what kind of environmental impacts we're going to have, what kind of threatened endangered species are we going to impact, all that kind of stuff. And so fortunately for what we're doing, it's pretty, those environmental impacts were real small. And so, but the type of things they look at are both short-term adverse impacts. I won't read all the text there, but as well as long-term impacts. Some of it's short-term might be just during construction or something. Long-term might be, okay, we're going to, if you're going to build some big structure, but then there was a wetland there that, is no longer going to be there. It's okay, there's a loss of wetland. And it's not like you can't have any environmental impacts. It's just we have to look at that and make sure that what we're doing justifies the loss of having some environmental impacts that are minor. Next. And this is, so those were the negative impacts, but then we're also providing beneficial effects as well. Like I say, we're protecting 91 structures and reducing flooding on a number of miles of streets. That's the, the big thing that we're looking at. Like I said, that annual flood damage costs about 2.6 million. I don't think that includes the county road stuff yet. We haven't put that in yet. But as well as, like I say, you've got historic structures and cultural sites here, as well as just a number of other things there that, like I say, that are benefits there that from reducing flooding. Next. And so here were the project costs. And like I said, we already had this slide in here, didn't we? I think we got a duplicate in there. So let's go ahead and go ahead and forward to the next one. So anyway, I'm gonna let Kelly wrap up here. You want to?
Okay, so in the beginning, I was talking about the need for public comment, and we are truly soliciting the public's comment. So how do you do that? When you are walking in at the sign-in table, we have comment cards. There were 2 comment cards. Take one of them and you can put your written comments there. If you don't want to use the comment card, then you can always send a letter. This is how you contact us via letter. The address is here. The third way is email. We have a dedicated email address set up, hwh.watershed@keycogroup.com. That's the other way that you can send a comment. But your comments are very much appreciated and will be considered during this commenting period. But please note that the commenting period closes September 30th of 2024. Just wanted to close with this slide because a lot of the meetings that we have attended, people have asked, well, when are you going to start doing something? You were doing a lot of plans. When is somebody going to actually build something or do something? And this is a process, and it can be a lengthy process. And so we are here in the planning phase. We're still in the planning phase. It's important to get your comments, get the plan finalized and present it for signature so that the plan can then move on to the design phase. What does that mean? Design is we're going to be taking the preferred alternative and putting actual civil design time and effort behind it so that you have something that can be constructed, actually built. And so that's typically an 18-month process, and then following that, construction. So it is a lengthy process, but it is worth it. Any questions before I move on from this? Okay, next, I think that's the last slide. Yeah. Okay, I'm now going to turn it over to Iconic. Yes. We had multiple sources of information, starting with the just general public, where the public, we asked for photos, survey results, those types, that sort of input. The other sources of input we got were from the Public Works Department and from the city itself. And then we had feedback from the county and those that are engaged in county Public Works. And so multitude of data. Philip, if you want to comment at all on the specifics of that, but our focus, which is the authorized purpose for this plan, is it's flood mitigation, and it has to be within those confines. Does that answer that question? Okay. And yes, Jennifer. No, it wasn't supposed to be a different site. It was just a duplicate. There wasn't a specific slide about the additional analysis, but that's, if the details of that are in the actual plan, and there's a copy right there of a hard copy of the plan if you want to look at that while you're here. But we're more than happy to get into some specific discussions about it during the Q&A. I want to give the other Watershed an opportunity to present. Any other questions before we move on? Okay, thank you all.
All right, good afternoon. As Kelly mentioned earlier, my name is Keith Britton. I'm president of Iconic Consulting Group. We're a civil engineering firm, and we have been blessed to be able to work on this project in concert with Arkansas Black Mayors Association. We're going to go through some slides. Some of these slides on the beginning, Kelly has already touched on it, and we've presented just in a different way, but it's the same communication. So I won't belittle you with any regurgitation of what she's already presented to you. All right. As Kelly mentioned, she went over the purpose of the public meeting. Just a quick overview of that. Here's the general overview of flood mitigation and prevention strategies for Lick Creek, Big Creek watersheds. And we're here to inform you what we've been doing based on the strategies that we've developed from the previous public information meetings that we've had. Background. I'm gonna touch on this a little bit. I don't think Kelly mentioned it, but you all, for those that this may be their first meeting, you may want to know, why did this project even come about? So this project is a joint effort between the Arkansas Black Mayors Association and NRCS, National Resource Conservation Services, the DC and the Arkansas offices. This is the first time ever that a nonprofit like the Arkansas Black Mayors Association is being the fiduciary owner of managing dollars to go to communities to help with flood mitigation issues. So it's almost like we are a test case, for a lack of better words, that depending how this perform, they may replicate it in other communities in the state and outside the state of Arkansas. And so this funding comes from the Biden-Harris infrastructure bill. So you're seeing dollars in your community that has come from that administration to help with flood mitigation in underserved communities. So Watershed Plan Environmental Assessment EA, as Kelly mentioned, she touched on this. It identifies potential projects to address flooding in the watershed and evaluate projects based on those parameters that you see, the 3 parameters that you see. Even though we have 2 projects here today, we looked at I believe it was 12 different projects within Helena-West Helena. And we made the determination to go with these two based on a number of factors, as Kelly mentioned, economics, the cultural resources. We had a scoring metric and a rubric that we developed to see based on the criteria of the manual that we were following to see which projects were best to move forward with. So phase one was done a couple of years ago by another firm. That's when you start a watershed process. This is the first thing that's done. It's short for a PIFR, which means preliminary investigation feasibility report. A firm comes in and just do a very high level assessment of the flooding and drainage that may be occurring in areas. Once they develop that, NRCS determines if that's adequate enough to move forward for additional funding to get to the phase that we are in right now, which is the planning process. And that's where we're at right now, the planning process. So what you have, the intent of this meeting today, as Kelly mentioned again, is to share the draft watershed EA to get public comments. So all during this process, we've had public comments during the beginning, interim, and then I think we was down here as recent as 3 weeks ago, right? Or a month ago, getting comments, sharing giving you a draft of what we have come up with thus far. We took those comments back, incorporated into our analysis, and now we're back again to say, okay, we have developed a draft watershed plan EA, and these are the projects that we are moving forward with. And so we do have copies electronically for you to review. And as Kelly mentioned, we definitely want to get additional feedback and comments from you. So the future, it's the design phase. Kelly mentioned that, and also the construction. Everybody wants to know when we turn in dirt, when we're going to get moving. We still a little ways from that. Okay. After this plan draft EA is approved, ABMA will be selecting a round of consultants to actually take this to the design phase. And then that's a process. And then from the design phase, it goes to construction. And one thing to note, when it gets to the design phase, when it's actually boots on the ground, they doing survey, capturing data, the limits of the project may shift or change a little bit, because in planning, it's only so much we can do in the planning phase. We typically bring stuff to like a 10, 20% level. But when you get to the design phase and you start doing surveying and looking at actual infrastructure, taking shots, seeing how the geometry of the terrain works, it may change a little bit. It may grow. It may shrink. It just, when you get eyes on the ground, it impacts it during the design phase. So what does recommended strategy location mean? It's a quick definition here. Recommended strategy is determined from a combination of a scoring rubric. Like I mentioned, we had a scoring rubric based on parameters that's identified in the watershed manual that we were following. Public feedback was extremely important. The severity of flooding and how often it occurs. And then the generalized level of flooding protection and flooding reduction based on modeling. And that's when Aaron's going to come up early, in a little bit and talk a little bit about the modeling aspect. So similar to what Philip shared, is going through that process of modeling to see which projects have the most cost, are most impactful for the dollar amount for the general public. You all mentioned, you all were asking the questions earlier with Kelly about, did it take consideration of social conditions? These, fortunately, we're covering it, touching on here. These are the 5 buckets that goes in consideration of developing the draft EA. Okay. So social conditions are extremely important as part of that process. The environmental justice and civil rights, and floodplain management, public health and safety, local, regional, and national economy. All of those have economic impact on the strategies that we develop. Okay, before I move in, I'm going to introduce Aaron. Aaron is part of our team. So when we formed a team to pursue this project, Iconic Consulting Group, real civil engineering firm, we made a strategic partnership with Olson Olson, they are experts in what they call PL 566 watershed plans. I think they had about 5 or 6 active type projects. This particular program was dormant for a while. Okay, so it was very limited firms out there that had experience working with it. So we built a team that included experts like Olson. We had an economist, a cultural resource person on our team, public engagement, all of that to make sure we're covering all the different channels to go down this journey. So Aaron is going to talk go a little bit more in depth about the projects, the ones that we were selected and what they are intended to do once they go to the design and the construction phase.
Yeah, like Keith said, my name's Aaron. I'm with Olson, and we've been working with Iconic and coming up with a lot of these recommended preferred alternatives. And we created what we call a story map, and you can look at really all the different projects that we worked through, and then these are the ones even that maybe didn't get selected or didn't get turned into preferred alternatives also on top of that. But we've got a lot of information. This is our story map. If you have your phone, your smartphone, you can just take a QR code of that and it'll take you to the website right there. If you can't get it from there for whatever reason, because these don't always work online, we also have another one, QR code over there. So feel free to take a picture of that. It'll take you to a website. I'm going to actually walk you through that after this too. So again, we looked at the larger watershed of Lick Creek and Big Creek, and these are the preferred alternatives that kind of rose to the top. The first one's over what we call the Helena-West Helena stormwater improvement, goes along 4th Street and also Plaza Street, most of it. And then the other one we call Lincoln Court stormwater improvements. And this is a little more farther, kind of the central west side of town. Here's a closer look at the Helena-West Helena stormwater improvement project. So again, we developed these based upon feedback we got from comment period from citizens just like yourself, and then also from a lot of key stakeholders who are public officials who've lived here for most of their lives or all their lives, and they say, hey, these are some issues that we have. Again, this isn't going to address every single flooding issue in the communities by any means, but these are the ones that kind of made sense that these would bring the most bang for the buck, I guess you could say, also known as a BCA, highest benefit cost ratio score. And so what this project would do along Plaza Street, from our modeling, it shows that there's a fair amount during heavy precipitation. There can be some flooding along there. This would, each one of these dots would be potential locations where maybe a stormwater inlet would be. The inlets are just going to capture the drainage from the roadway in a very efficient manner, getting into an underground stormwater system, and then start piping it to the west and eventually to the north along 4th Street right there. And as it goes along 4th Street, it'd be kind of a combination of some improved ditches, enlarged ditches cleaned out with extra stormwater inlets to capture more drainage in the area there. And then also then eventually go a little bit to the west and to the north, and kind of this square area right around here. This would be a detention basin. So what happens currently, the stormwater just kind of spreads out across the area. If you live in this community, I'm sure you're aware of that completely. But as it spreads across the area, it's going over grass, heavy vegetation, yards, and through ditches that maybe aren't the most efficient at conveying the stormwater, which leads to the flooding, of course. And so if we were to capture these into new and improved ditches and storm sewers, it's going to get through the area much quicker. And so what that would do downstream is actually increase the peak flows coming into these areas. And so before, maybe they didn't have as much flooding, but now it could potentially increase the flooding. It's not that new water is getting to them, it's just going to get to them quicker. And so we would add a detention basin. What a detention basin is, it essentially is this pond that we dig out. Most of the time it won't have a lot of water in it, maybe just a little bit for like a wetland area. And but then most of the time it would just be maybe like a little bit of water in there. And then when you get a heavy rainstorm, it would fill up kind of hold the water, store it for a little bit. And then we would put a culvert or a pipe under Coral's lane right there, and then it would slowly release it into the ditch. And so the downstream area won't see really any change, even though the water will get through the area quicker. And within that detention basin, it wouldn't, again, hold water most of the time, except for just a little bit, maybe 10% of it hold water. Within that, though, that 10%, 20%, that would be a wetland. And the wetlands, so that would capture the water. A lot of the water coming off of streets are have pollutants with it from just tires and cars. You know, your tires kind of grind down over time. That's why you need to get new tires. And so, you know, essentially all that dust gets in the car and into the streets, and same with oil and other things. And so then that gets into our waterways and cause pollution. Well, it'll go into this detention, into this wetland area, and the plants in there will actually start containing that and uptaking the pollutants and actually clean the water out for the community. And so then downstream, it will have cleaner water than what you had before. And so this is kind of an overview of this project. Our Lincoln Court Stormwater Improvement Project. This would do essentially a lot of ditch improvements. What would be involved with those would be the existing ditches would be enlarged, cleaned out, and created in such a way that they're easier to maintain going forward. We would also add storm sewer at certain areas that made sense, adding some culverts under roadways, just pipes to get the water from one area to the other, and just improving some driveway ditches too. And so the project would start kind of on the east side of MLK, and just south of Plaza, and then capture the drainage in this area, the Lincoln Court area. And then it would pipe in under MLK right there, go through some storm sewer for just a little bit. And then there's already a ditch there. This would just be improving the ditch, adding a few pipes or culverts along the way. And then just like our other project, we would add a little detention basin right there to help, again, slow the water down so the area that is downstream of this wouldn't see potential increased flooding on the area. And then maybe even clean up the water a little bit through a wetland. So this is, again, one of the projects that we have. And if we keep going, so this is, you got a description right there. Most of these storms are going to be conveying what we call a 25-year storm event or a 100-year event. What that basically means, a 25-year storm event would be something that you would only see every 25 years statistically. Now, sometimes you get a really big rain 1 or 2 years in a row or whatever, then it doesn't happen for another 50 years or something like that. But all that to say is this would convey a very heavy storm. A 25-year storm event is that. A 100-year storm event is even heavier storm, where it's like you shouldn't see that more than once every 100 years, but there's still, like I said, anomalies do happen. You basically have a 1% chance of the storm happening every year. And so that would contain an extremely strong thunderstorm that you normally wouldn't see except for maybe once in your life. And if you're really old, then maybe twice. And the cost for these projects, you got the total cost right there. So the Lincoln Court, that'd be about 2.2 million is our estimate. And Helena-West Helena would be about almost 8 million right there. And so it's kind of a quick overview of these projects. We'll be around to answer questions. We got some maps over here. We can actually get a little closer and see these proposed alternatives. And again, we're in the draft EA period, and we are looking for your comments, your feedback over the next about 10 days or so until the 30th. And then you can submit your information from there. We also have comment cards out there, so you can fill those out. I'm going to escape out of this and actually take us to that website I was talking about. And let's see how long it takes for this to switch over. Huh. Let me share this again. Just thinking about it. There it is. Okay, great. So here's the website that we have, and what we created. You can look at this and see some information. It's got some background information here. A lot of this is what we talked about. Feel free to read through that. Of course, we encourage you to do that. We've got documentation of previous projects we've had on there that you can look through. We've got public survey data map. These are all the comments that we got from our survey that we did back about a year ago. And here's the various projects that we reviewed and feedback that we got from the communities, or these are some of the pictures up there. Here's a map that kind of shows the flood area. FEMA did what they call base level flooding, base level engineering. It essentially is shows you areas that should flood during a 100-year storm event based upon the model. And you can look at the community and then just see the flooding impact that it has. This is 4th Street right here. You can see the flooding that the model was showing there, and that's one of the areas that we address. And this is the Lincoln Park area. And you can kind of go various areas and see that map and the flooding there. These are the different projects that we did look into. Not all these, again, were the preferred alternative that that some of these weren't selected, made it through the process of analysis. And feel free to look through all these. You can also then click on these maps and then and you can take another closer look at, of course, it's taken a while. There it is. You can see the different exhibits we got there that we showed you. And yeah, you just go through all these and look at that. So we encourage you to go to that website. It's very interactive and very useful. So let me stop sharing my screen now.
Just to add what Aaron mentioned, if you got, most of us got smartphones up, right? So that it works with your smartphone. You got an iPad or tablet, I encourage you to use it, and you can see the history. We try to document everything that we've been through. So all the comments that we received, you can go to that map and see who gave a comment about here. You won't see the name, but you'll see what they said about the problematic areas. But definitely take the time to use that tool.
I don't know if I'm still sharing.
So I guess that we'll open it up to any overall questions for both our teams. And so, go ahead.
I appreciate all of the information that you guys have presented today. I wanted to ask this, like, while everyone's here, because those of us who are here have collected your contact information, specifically the email, and we might be sharing it out to other members of the community who weren't able to attend. What kinds of questions, and we're not gonna police anybody, they can still email you whatever they want to email you and say, but what kind of questions are going to be most effective in implementable, basically? Like if someone lives in an area that's not highlighted on one of these maps and they experience flooding and they send you an email, the likelihood of them becoming one of these key areas is very low. Do you still want those, and are you still going to make note of them? Or like, what kind of comments or what kind of questions could our, citizens send you that would actually move the needle on these projects or give you information that'll help you provide the service to us better?
Okay, I'll start answering that question. So we definitely need all comments, right? Because it is documented in the plan. Every comment that we receive from the community is documented. The alternatives that we've come up with, if you see areas that you feel, hey, this doesn't seem right, because I know that when I drive during a high storm event, this happens here in your alternative area, but it's close and you're not capturing it. We want that information as well. But every comment that we receive, it is documented as part of the draft plan EA. After the 30, I think What happens after the 30th?
Well, after the 30th, we could, keep that for record, but it's gonna be technically out of the comment.
Comment period.
Now, with these preferred alternatives, again, there was a high level view of everything. And so if you're in these neighborhoods and you have like some information that would help us fine tune the projects, please let us know. You can really let us know anytime as, we get closer to the actual design. We're gonna need more of that stuff to, make the design better because again, as Keith was saying earlier, we did the review, but we have limited data. We weren't here with actual survey. It was kind of just using the models that are already out there from FEMA and other places, using some digital elevation files or topography and trying to determine the watersheds, but those finding the really small things that didn't necessarily get picked up in these models. They will get picked up later during the design process. And so if you have particular information that would apply to these, let us know. If there's stuff that may be outside of these areas, please still let us know as we'll be documenting these things and there may be other avenues to help those in the future too.
Let me ask a question that either Philip or Aaron can ask. Cause they've done these type of plans before. How useful are these plans for the city going forward? Like, they got 2 projects that move forward, but they have a draft EA that has a lot of content and documentation in it. How could they use that going forward, maybe for projects that didn't make the cutoff?
Yeah, so the ones that, Phil, you can correct. For the ones that maybe aren't out, they're outside of the preferred alternatives, again, there's so many needs, there's always, a limited amount of money to go through and we're happy that there is actually a good amount of money to do some good to the communities, but we're not gonna get everything. And so the areas that we kind of highlighted that we're able to, put together a write-up and do some exhibits, et cetera, and it's all in the draft EA and the final EA will be in there too, is those are ones that there's still money out there, but they may come through what do you call those grants? There's through FEMA, there's other grants out there that if communities all over Arkansas get them all the time. And so those are avenues where like, okay, you get flooding, let's apply for this grant instead. It's not gonna come from the NRCS, it's gonna come from FEMA itself. Those are 2 different entities, of course, all under the federal government, of course.
So, and add
So
to
there's other pots of money
Yeah.
that you can get grants that would allow those communities to maybe get some help.
So we got to make sure that we hold our leadership accountable, that we got this book of data, this funding can only be used for so much, but there's other funding sources out there that we can leverage this work that we put together and go for other grant opportunities as well. So.
You mentioned earlier that an electronic copy would be available. Where would we find that?
So it's on their website. Now, if you want to look through it today, we had it pulled up on our laptops here, but the plan is actually on the website. If you scan that QR code, you'll see the link to all those resources. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, I'll add one more component to the first question you asked about, what kind of comments can move the needle. You all know these communities that you live in, you know the communities better than we do. And so if there's something we've overlooked, not just from a technical standpoint, but from a social, environmental standpoint, something we've overlooked, we point that out to us. And, at the end of the day, these are locally, they're the federally funded projects, but they're locally sponsored. And so the local sponsors, which are you saw the names up there, the cities, the county, they're the ones who sign off on it. So, really, these programs are designed to where the final decisions are made at the local level. So we appreciate all local information. It is draft. It's not final.
In addition to what you were just saying, what's the most, what information do people need to make sure that they include in their email? So don't assume that you know where they live and that kind of thing. They need to include their address or just the street that they live on? Or what information with their question or comments would make sure that you are able to pinpoint on the map where they're, asking for?
Just, well, with what you said, the location, it may not be providing information about where you live, maybe it's where someone else lives.
Right.
And so, yeah, just, and that's like, this happened like earlier, and so, yeah, if it's not clear, we'll try to contact you, clarify, but that does help matters, if you can be specific, usually location is the most, specific thing that will help us the most.
And the pictures, go ahead.
I think it'd be good to make sure any communication, we have the sender's name and contact information, at least a phone number and or an email, because like Phil just commented, if we need to reach back out to you, we need to be able to do that. And then any specific information you can give about the location. Photos are extremely, you have photos, some people send in video footage. That,
I want to make a comment on that. Previous, I have to point. Who I think this will,
please,
what I would like to say, is this. My name is Tammy Perry Farm. And I want to make it very clear, I do not live in Lakeview Road. I live in Helena-West. And whenever it rains, and I have put this on Facebook, took a picture, and said, who moved my house? Now, it was fun at first, but it's not fun anymore. Because every time I leave my boots at the front door, so that when I open the door, before I step on my front step, I have to put my boots on. And I'm not talking about a 2-day rain. I'm talking, it's not even a day. And it floods like that. I know I'm not on here anymore because it's too extensive. It's definitely not gonna be good for the community because it's only a handful down there. We don't pay large taxes because it's a poor environment. I understand all that. But I still say, I don't care if the city spends, just spend something to come give us some relief. All of y'all know me, y'all say, oh yes, she the woman from down the ground. But I'm here for my area. I'm standing instead for everybody down there that I always said they aren't gonna do anything. So I don't know why you keep going. When I pull a U-Haul up to my house and say, I've had enough, this is my last flood, I can look back and say, I've done all this. The drainage system, shot. I can't even see the pipe anymore. Our ditches look like driveways. You can drive them. That shouldn't be, it wasn't like that, y'all. We're supposed to have a ditch. We don't have ditches. I appreciate what y'all do, but my prayer is this. I want every dime to go to whoever it's supposed to go to, that y'all supposed to help. I don't want a dollar to go in nobody's pocket that's not trying to benefit this city. Because we done heard all this before, we done been made all these promises, and then we turn around and all of a sudden, it's years later, nobody got any money, blah, blah, blah. But all I'm gonna say is this, everybody done heard my mouth, I've been everywhere. And I've been given multiple promises. But I've been to every meeting, and I said, if I'm the only somebody in this city that come, that's fine with me, because you're gonna hear me. I appreciate y'all, but I'm saying this, we really got, everybody know how bad that area is, but I even suggested, why don't y'all simply get on the phone and contact the company, Homestead Rescue. Bring them down here, bring them to help the problem. Let them do the job. I seen the work they did on TV to resort places in Alaska and all that. I mean, Helena-West. Can you bring them? I'm saying, they may be right, but can you bring them to say, need money. If it costs so much, can you bring it home and say rescue the Helena-West County and send them to help with quality so they can get their water fixed? I'm gonna tell y'all the last thing, and then I'm getting up out of here. The sewer system, we got a pump down there to go out so much, I don't even know it's out. Until I look at my ditch and it didn't rain, but it's full of green water. Water's not supposed to be green yet. And when the wind blows, you'll find out why it's green. Don't make sense. But it's been allowed. And that's how we have to do it. It's a nightmare when I feel a rain spot on it. My house being so wet, if you try to lift it up, it's gonna fall apart. It's so much water damage. I'm spending so much money on redoing every floor in my house.
Yes.
It's exhausting. But I know the areas that y'all gonna help is dealing with the same thing, so I'm speaking for them. They're not here to speak for themselves, but I guarantee you, if we all sat at the table, everything I said would be just as correct with you. Yeah, we got it. Because. Keep talking.
That's right.
You're saying,
Everything is gonna happen.
y'all have a good evening. What about-
My person is Miller Heights on there. I drive for East Arkansas, and I've been working for 8 years. I drive all the way, I'm in West South area. I'm from Miller Heights all the way down to 49. And I see so many flooded areas, but Miller Heights is an area that the road is corroded on this side. 2 cars that I've seen that hit the ditch, 2 and I almost hit the ditch. It's so, it was this wide, now it's this wide. Only one person go through there at a time. You know, some people act like they can go through it twice, but they're unfortunate to be in the ditch. Because they don't see it because the weed is so high up and they can't see the ditch over on the side. But over there, I was there, went through that thing, and they had a big old hole in the mill. I was driving mill 3 years before anybody came to plug the water up. Before anybody plugged up. Helena-West said that it wasn't their fault. Helena said it was their fault. So I kept on complaining about it. So it's running now. And the ditch is starting to get wide. And then when it floods, you gotta get a boat to get to it. In order for me to get the food to the people. So I was wondering what.
I'm sorry, can you say the name of the location again?
It's Miller Heights,
Miller Heights?
right? Midland Heights, right? Right. Yeah, it's down the street from here.
On their website. I think
It's
it's
on there.
on their website.
Yeah, cause I didn't see it up there, that's why I was asking. Yeah, the cross street from, what's that one?
Yeah, go ahead.
On Valley Road, Valley Street, I think it's Valley.
That's what they're called.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
Someone provided feedback for that area.
Any other additional questions before we could sit down and make sure we capture any more comments or questions you may have, or if anybody wants to flip through the draft EAs as well.
Think they're with me?
Take the map with you.
You can take a picture of it.
Or you talking about take Kevin or the map? Okay, them your maps.
So they did.
All right, right, if there's not any more questions, we're gonna be around here for a little bit more time to take any feedback you want to give us. All right, but thank you for coming out and expressing your concern, giving us some feedback and attending today. Usually these are low attended events, but they are very important. They do influence what we do. So thank you for taking time to visit with us. All right. Also, there are some refreshments in the back room. And also ice drinks as well, water and soda.
Sweet.
And sweet tea.